1 billion years in the future. Mankind's dominance over the Earth has long since been usurped by technological advances and visitors from beyond the stars. And much like the reign of the dinosaurs, each new world has climbed out of its predecessor's ashes before meeting a harsh finish. Now, in the ninth such world, humanity struggles for survival on a planet ravaged by powerful artifacts. Will the heroes learn to master the magic of the past, or will they unleash horrors unbound by natural reality? Find out on a journey with your quest friends.
Welcome! God, I'm terrible. Welcome to Quest Friends. We're all friends here, and we're all gonna go on a quest together. That's what we're doing. We're friends. We're questing friends. Quest friends. So this is gonna be a D&D podcast. Well, not D&D. It's gonna be a role-playing podcast, although most people think of role-playing like Dungeons and Dragons. So I'm gonna explain what role-playing is. Hi, I'm Kyle. I'm your DM. I'm your GM. I'm your Game Master. I'm the one in charge of things, and as you can tell, I got a very good handle on what's going on. So before we start, what is role-playing? Well, I'm glad you asked, random listener. Role-playing is kind of a form of collaborative storytelling where everyone's going to take on the role of one character. So every one of our 4 players today, that's not including me, is going to take on the role of a character. They control what that character is like. They control what the actions that character makes. So if John, the character, decides to open a door, his player is going to control that. I am the Game Master, and I'm God, baby. I am everything else in this universe. I play every other character, I write the setting, I set up the challenges, and I, plus random chance by dice, decide whether or not the things that the characters try to do works. So there is some element of planning, so I've got to set up the challenges, I've got to set up the setting, but a lot of what you're going to listen to today is improvised. It's improvised storytelling as the players are given challenges, and then they respond to them. And then I respond to them responding, and it's just kind of back and forth, and eventually we're just doing an improv scene. And something very important to mention, we're playing a system called Numenera, which I'll explain in more detail later. But for those of you who might listen to this and want to try role-playing, and for those of you who know the system very well, it's important to mention that with role-playing, there are baseline rules, but I'm going to tweak some, remove some, and add my own. The same applies for the story universe. So if you comment, hey, you didn't listen to that rule, I know I didn't, and I chose not to, and the rule book says that's okay. God, I'm too aggressive for introductions. Alright, so let's get to the introduction of this game. So Numenera. This is for the players too. Numenera let's just all introduce ourselves first, not our players. So I'm Kyle. I am your GM today. I will be God. But as you'll see soon, God has very little power in the role-playing universe.
All right. Well, I am playing an android character. It's a genderless android named Misha. So Misha is actually, and this is a common thing that people should know, is an android that has relatively few memories. It's an android that like they have existed longer than they can remember things. Like there was some sort of problem with software or whatever. So really, to Misha, they have been only conscious of only a month. So they don't really know much about anything about humans, but they are really interested about them, especially because they feel like they have a big connection with them, even though they don't know why. And so they're just very obsessed and try to be as human as possible while being an android. And so they are not a punching person necessarily.
They're a nano, right?
What? A nano, yes. They are a nano that an artificially intelligent nano that speaks to the datasphere. So description-wise, Misha is relatively taller than an average human. They have mismatched colored eyes. So from a distance, Misha does look like a human. They look like a perfectly proportioned human. But then when approaching Misha, it's kind of obvious that it's almost too perfect. Like the skin is too glossy, and it's not really a skin color that humans have. It's like a mannequin kind of color of skin. And what else? They have a scarf that's long and a kazoo instrument that they spend a lot of money on. So
if I get this right, they are a kazoo-toting science wizard who can access Google.
yeah, and so the reason why they have the kazoo is also because they are so trusting on humans that they just got conned upon coming to this town, which is the first town that they have ever visited in their life, to their experiences. And so they just heard that, that was just a magical instrument and whatever, and they just trusted these really nice looking vendor people that just decided to take all their money, and so they have that instrument now.
Alright, Hallie, who are you playing today?
I will be playing Hopperscotch, who is sometimes, because of the way he skips from town to town so quickly, known as Hopscotch. But he hates that name, so he will correct anyone who uses it. Hopperscotch is basically if Ben Wyatt from Parks and Recreation was cosplaying Jim Hopper from Stranger Things. He is a vigilante, and he's not afraid to throw down and throw a few punches, and he can be a badass. But mostly he's a vigilante of the accounting nature, and he tries to help towns with, their financial and bureaucratic problems. He's a real good guy. His actual build is an honorable Jack who metes out justice, so he's just trying to do his best day by day. He has a shield. He wears a shield kind of like a backpack, like it's got a strap on it, and then just whips it off when he needs a shield. And then also he wears a dusty leather jacket and a Stetson, but the leather jacket has a front right pocket, and in the front right pocket is a calculator-looking object. Hopper is also a history nerd, but no one appreciates history in the Ninth World, so he's never found anyone who shares that particular passion of his, and it makes him sad.
And what is a jack?
Oh, I'm sorry. A jack is like a rogue. It's the rough equivalent of a rogue. They're good at a lot of things. They aren't amazing at any one thing, but they have an even, jack of all trades is basically what they are.
All right, how about you, Tom?
I am playing Shock, who is a Bazian nano who talks to machines. Shock was raised in a distant location called the Wheel of Baz, which is a haven for various types of intelligent machines. He was allegedly found as a baby out in the wastes and taken back there, Jungle Book style. And so he has been raised among machines all his life, with no other human contact, and has only recently, within the last year, decided to go out into the world, salvaging and learning more about his human origins. He's been traveling for some time to reach the Steadfast. Notably, he's very thin and has dirty blonde hair that looks a little bit matted, like he hasn't been able to wash it for a few days. And he wears a dirty blue robe tied with a blue cord at his waist, and pretty heavily stained down by the feet. And he carries a clear glass staff, which at the top begins to split off into what looks like little branches from a dead bush, but still made of glass. And in general, he's just a science wizard who can telepathically communicate with machines and doesn't get people.
Awesome. And then Emily, you're the last person.
So Ellie is a very small old lady. She's a glaive. So she's
What is a glaive?
like a warrior type character. She has a folding chair strapped across her back that she fights with. It's made of the same... It's reinforced by the same material that she actually has in her bones. Her focus is fuses flesh and steel. And her big character identifier visibly is she's got a ginormous hat with a bunch of junk on it, including 3 lit candles.
Was that a good... I might cut at this part. Was that a good enough introduction? Can we move on to the game itself?
Yeah, I think it was fine.
Okay, good. Alright, so the game we're playing, as I said, we're not playing Dungeons & Dragons. We are playing Numenera. So Numenera is a game that takes place 1 billion years in the future. So since today, there have been 8 worlds. Some have been ruled by humans, some haven't. So like our world, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Tom, our world right now is the first world. And eventually some kind...
As far as we know, yes.
What?
As far as we know, yes.
Yeah, okay. So as far as we know, civilization right now, 2017, is the first world. Eventually, hopefully not soon, the apocalypse is going to happen, and society is going to fall apart, and the second world is going to come and happen. And this is going to repeat a bunch of times. It's going to repeat 8 times until we're placed 1 billion years in the future, and we're in the 9th world. And humans are still around, luckily enough. We weren't always in charge, but we're still around. Now, we don't know in the 9th world, we don't know anything about the previous worlds besides the weird shit they've left behind. So, like, that weird stuff you'd find on Craigslist, that is an artifact now. That's some mythological artifact that people don't know how to use. The 9th world itself is kind of, it's this medieval-style scavenger society where people are taking these old relics that are really heavy sci-fi and kind of using them like magic. And most of human society exists kind of west of this mountain range, and then everywhere else exists everywhere else. So that's the basics of Numenera. So our story begins in the small herding village of Rhubarb, located to the west of the Black Riage, the prominent mountain range that separates society from everything else. So it's part of this wealthy northern country of, I think it's pronounced Navarine. Is that right, Tom?
Yes.
So Navarine, which is of the many countries on the west, it's the really wealthy one at the north. So Navarine. Although Rhubarb doesn't actually seem that wealthy. Because while you might find an electric tether here or a telepathic sheepdog there, for the most part the people get by the grit of their teeth. And grit they have, making their pay by taming a multitude of wild creatures, including Anines, which are actually genuinely amiable creatures that are basically, they're like bipedal dino camels. So they're like dinosaur camels on 2 legs. You've got blood barms, which are tiny horror turkeys that are like turkey-sized, but they don't have a head and they're covered with like red egg sacs everywhere.
Oh, fun.
And then you've got broken hounds, which are like these horrific dog-like creatures that have bony bird heads. These broken hounds are interesting because they're generally impossible to tame, and yet you'll find half a dozen of these hounds happily accompanying their human companion to the sheds each morning. Essentially, this is a small, idyllic town that's kind of rough and tumble, and is raising a lot of livestock that normally isn't raised, and a lot of people think can't or shouldn't be raised. And we're gonna start actually with Ari's character. We're gonna start with Misha, because everyone is here because the town has been posting a call for anyone daring, desperate, or deluded enough to adventure for hire. Okay, so Ari, your character is gonna enter the entrance to the mayor's office, which coincidentally is in a back room of the town bar. The bar is alive with what I call life and strife. So basically, people are just fighting everywhere. Food and fists are flying, and there's just a massive bar fight. But everyone seems to be having a good time. Like, you've got friends smiling at each other and then just punching each other's teeth out. And so, Ari, you're going to enter this bar. As a band, there's a band playing in the corner, and you can see them, like, ducking as, like, food and, like, beers being thrown over them. And you can see across the entrance. So you registered, but you gotta say you're here. And across the entrance at the bar, you see this pleasant woman just kind of casually washing dishes and not paying attention to anything.
Okay. Right. So Misha is just gonna enter to the bar, and it's going to is going to stand and look around, being a little bit puzzled, but at the same time, just like taking it all in. And then it's going to approach the. Is there any sort of like bartender person?
Yeah, that's that really nice old lady. Is
that the woman?
Yeah, that really nice
Okay,
lady that's
so-
washing dishes. She's the bartender. Alright, she sees you come over and she says, "Well, hello there, dear. How are you doing today?"
I'm going to be like, oh, why, hello there, unidentified bartender. I am doing quite well. I am seeing that there is quite a event right now in this place. Is this a special occasion?
You know those boys, they just go crazy for Thursday night brawl out.
Thursday night brawlout.
Yeah, Thursday.
And can I? So I want to use my like speak to the data sphere thing to kind of try to figure out what that means.
So one thing to mention is that everybody in this game has abilities that they can use. So what is this speaks to the data? Can you explain how this ability works?
As I understand it, I know it's a way that it's kind of like Googling for something on. So like my character has the ability that are kind of connected to these like Numenera entity called the data sphere, and correct me if I'm wrong, Tom or Kyle.
Yeah, the data sphere
And
is essentially, imagine if the internet was the atmosphere. That's the data sphere.
yes, right. And so Misha kind of can not communicate with it, but can have access to it more easily to like look for information.
You can do that
And so-
once a day, right?
I think so.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
So I'm gonna spend it on trying to figure out what Thursday night brawl is.
Do you have to roll for that, or can you just do it?
Shit.
Oh, while Ari looks that up, I'm going to explain how rolling works. So, as you can see, Ari's character, Misha, is trying to do something right now. And characters can decide to do whatever they want, but that does not mean it's going to work. So what essentially happens is some things work automatically, some things you have to roll for. So that's what Ari's checking right now to see whether or not she has to roll for it. But if a character has to roll, essentially they take a dice with 20 sides and they roll it. And higher numbers mean that they're more likely to succeed. But if they don't reach a certain number, so let's say they have to roll a 15 to succeed, if they roll a 12, they just fail. And if they roll a 1, they fail in a spectacular way. But a nice compromise to that is if they roll a 20, they automatically succeed, and they succeed in a spectacular way. So that's a critical fail and a critical success.
The rules won't say whether or not you have to roll. It's basically up to you whether or not you want to require a roll for it.
Okay. Well, in that case, this is a pretty simple question. So you're gonna ask the data sphere. All right. What are I know the data sphere doesn't actually look like the internet, but to keep this Google comparison going, what are you typing into the data sphere? What are your keywords?
I want to say normal human traditions on Thursday night brawls. It's gonna be.
All right. So you look deep into the data sphere, and you find that brawls are things that usually enemies do. Like it's usually a type of fight. You also find there was some sort of like digital. You get the sense that way back in one of the previous worlds there was also like some sort of like digital versions of this, but they had like plumbers and a lot like this they had like plumbers and miners and like everyday workers, a couple of anthropomorphic animals as well. So that's what the data sphere tells you about brawls. It's usually something enemies have done, but there was some sort of electronic entertainment that was related to friends. The keyword Thursday doesn't seem to ring a bell to it at all.
Huh, interesting. Going to be like, oh, what? This is going to look confused. Misha's going to look confused at the bartender and be like, Huh. It's interesting. Are people having are people having an actual fight on Thursdays? Do our common enemy comes on Thursdays to have a brawl in this place?
Well, you must be new here, darling. No, we don't have any enemies here besides the bureaucracy. No, we just like to have a good old fun time and let out our aggression because these boys and these women, they have a tough time of life. Well, what are you here for? You don't seem to be here for the Thursday night brawl.
I certainly am not. I had not heard of this tradition at all. Uh, I heard that there is a certain quest that has been requested for several humans in this town.
Yes, we do. We certainly have a quest. And oh, look, it looks like we're waiting for one more person. So now, dear, can you tell me what your name is?
Oh, certainly. My name is. My identifier is machine in suit of human armor.
Dear, I can't. Nobody's gonna be remembering that, dear. Do you have like a nickname, like a shortened version that normal folk can remember?
Yes, certainly. But I should first explain the whole meaning of my nickname.
Dear. We don't got time for this. You mention a couple of words and they just go over my head. So like, could you just give me a shortened version or something like that?
Certainly, yeah. You can shorten my long nomenclature as Misha Jarvis at your service.
She's gonna look, and she looks down, and you can see her tapping on the first letter of every word of the name written there. And then she says, "Nah, it even's got that. It even has the 'at your service' there at the end." Well, thank you so much, Misha. I'll get you seen soon. And she goes over to the door to the mayor's office and just turns around. She says, "Hey, everyone, pop down for a moment." And the room just gets quiet. And she says, "All right. Now, what I'm going to need is everyone who signed up for the mayor's quest." She opens the door. "You can come right back through here, and she'll see you shortly. Everyone else can continue." And you see everyone run back into a bar fight. And so, Misha, you see this door open, and you're going to walk in. But joining you, you see a couple of people stand up and join you. You see a young man who's been awkwardly sitting in the corner, like one of those corner tables, just trying really, really hard not to get involved in this fight. So you see him, he's like 19 years, he joins you. You see an elderly woman who is knee-deep in the fighting. You see her just like kind of roll up her wrists and wipe off some of the blood. We don't know if it's hers or somebody else's, and she walks into the room. And then finally you see a groggy man who has fallen asleep at a table, his face into a half-eaten calzoon. Calzoons being the ninth world equivalent of a calzone. You see him look up, kind of sloppily wipe some of the cheese and tomato off of his face, and walk into the room. So that's the rest of the party. And so now you're going to enter, the party as a whole, you're entering a well-kept office. It's a pretty simple office. You see this kind of like, what looks like a stool that's covered in a blanket, and then you see just a normal desk. And in front of the desk, you see Mayor Sue Strongarm. So Mayor Sue Strongarm is this large, burly woman wearing, like, farming mining overalls and then, like, a working shirt underneath it. Some of her clothing is ripped, which you can tell is clearly from the fighting, but it seems less like someone ripped it while they were fighting, and more just that her poor clothes couldn't take the stress of her muscles going full force. Because she is a ripped woman. Like, Strongarm is not a misnomer. And so as you enter, you can see her writing a note to this bloodied man, who's just standing in front of her. And she's just looking to him and she says, "Well, I'm really sorry, David. I know I went a bit too strong on you. But if you go just to the capital city, just a little bit west of here, go to the Queen's Manors and request to see a Mr. Mako. Mr. Mako, he's a good friend of mine and the best medic I can see, and he's currently working for Queen Armalu in Charmande. Just go there, show them this logo, and you'll be perfectly fine." And you can see her write on like a napkin, a logo that looks like there's an M, and then there's a second M that's kind of stretched out beneath it, with its top points touching the bottom points, and it kind of looks like there's an M, and the other one is like one of those long vaudevillian mustaches at the bottom of the other one. Does that make sense,
Okay.
what I'm describing?
Yes, I think.
Okay. So it's an M, and the other one kind of looks like a mustache beneath it, like super long and
It looks
stretched
like
out.
Batman's coat.
Looks like a tall hat.
And that's for Mr. Mako. And so she shuffles the bloody man off. It is not Wario and Waluigi. It is not
Damn
their
it.
mustaches. It is for Mr. Mako. Thank you very much. And so Sue comes you over and she's like, "Oh, you all must be our questers. You must be the ones who responded to our post. Well, I'm really glad we're having a bit of difficulty here. But I appreciate you taking the time." She kind of leans back against her desk, is like, but please don't. I know I'm talking a little bit too much. Would you mind just introducing yourselves first so we can get an idea of who you are? I just think it's important to kind of establish bonds of acquaintanceship before we go on a quest. So at least we're quest acquaintances,
So Misha's going to jump right into it. It's going to be like, "Oh, certainly. I want to," but then Misha's going to look at at the sleeping guy on the table. I'm going to be like, "Well, I do believe that in order to have acquaintances, everybody needs to be awake in order to see these acquaintances. And I do believe that not everybody is in this position right now."
Hopper has been kind of rubbing his hand on the side of his jacket to double check that he doesn't have food in his hands, because when he heard acquaintance, he was immediately going to be prepared to shake people's hands. But he doesn't. He's still kind of tired, so he doesn't notice the slight right away. So he's just going to turn from his hand and then look at Misha and say, "What?"
He's like, "Oh, excellent. Sorry, I believe that you were not awake at the moment. Was Thursday Brawl too harsh on you?"
No, I'm sorry. It's been a long day. Look, hopperscotch, and then he extends his hand.
Misha's going to look.
Shock is going to awkwardly reach in and also try to do a three-way handshake.
And then
Misha's
in
just going
response to that,
actively.
in response to that, he's going to move his hand more into a handshake just with Zoc and be like, "Hopperscotch," and reintroduce himself.
My name is Shock, and I am a great wizard and also very, very dangerous and foolhardy, as was requested in our job request. Yes,
Well,
I'm very qualified.
I mean, that was Sue's gonna look at you. Well, dear, that was more just to scare away anyone who might have their own selfish means. If you've got a good heart, I think you'll be great. So I guess
I don't have any means, and I have a great heart.
Hopper's going to withdraw his hand from Zoc now. And then give it back to Misha, because I'm not sure if we ever shook hands, and Hop doesn't want to accidentally be rude.
she's gonna.
Okay.
All right, Sue's just gonna kind of stare at you all a little bit, and then she's gonna turn over to the elderly woman who hasn't been talking, and say, "Well, how about you, ma'am? I haven't. Clearly, these folks are well acquainted
Strange.
with each other." "Well, I think that's a little impolite to say, ma'am. I think these folks just, they're well acquainted, but I want to make sure you're acquainted too. So, would you mind just telling us a little bit about yourself?"
My name's Ellie. I may or may not have killed a man tonight.
No, it happens to the best of us.
I do like a woman with muscles. Anyway,
She's gonna pull out a sheet of paper that looks like it's some sort of eulogy form and just start casually writing down on it as you continue.
As far as my traveling companions, how are you? Are you doing well? You seem weird.
Realizing that he never shook her hand, Hopper again goes with an outstretched hand as Hopperscotch, and you are?
Ellie Badge.
Ellie.
She's gonna take Hopper's hand and squeeze very,
Huh.
very hard and
Hopper was
shake
not
his body
Sorry, go ahead.
with her handshake.
Hopper was not prepared
Shock
for that.
tries to
Ah!
Shock tries to do a three-way handshake yet again, and just sort of shake the outside of Ellie's hand as it squeezes Hopper.
Okay, that's that.
And he'll
Misha-
say, "Go ahead."
Misha's going to also try, like, upon realizing that handshaking is a thing, is gonna try and, like, grab everybody's hands, but they only have two hands, so it's going to be super awkward, like, trying to not let go of Hopper's hand, trying to grab Sock's hand, and trying to, like, at the same time grab Ellie's.
Please stop.
Helly?
Please stop.
I ran out of food a day ago, but other than that, I'm fine.
Ellie, could you roll a dice, please, for perception? Perception
can.
is when you try to see something you can't see.
17.
Alright, as you look, you're gonna see Sue is kind of looking down at herself a little bit, and she looks a little hurt. You never offered to shake her hand. She looks a little hurt about that.
I was just getting to her last. Okay, so I'm gonna try to break out of Ellie's handshake. Do I need to roll for that? It's a very strong grip.
Ellie, are you gonna keep holding on to her?
No, Ellie's got other people to muscle into submission.
Okay, yeah, no,
Yeah,
you
so-
get away fine.
Okay, Hopper's gonna just trying not to be rude, but also trying to save his life. He's going to just wiggle himself out of Ellie's grip, and then also everyone else's, because everyone else is just around him now. And he's gonna kind of work his way across, and he's like, Madam Mayor, Hopperscotch, look forward to working with you.
She's gonna shake her head. Well, it's great. It's great to meet you, Mr. Scotch. But I'm afraid we still have no. I apologize. I still have no idea who the fuck any of you people are. So if we could just go. No, it's going to be a little difficult. If we could go just one down the line, and just kind of give a little more information about ourselves.
She's gonna be like, but we're not standing in a line. Which...
Oh, you want to start? That would be great. I would really appreciate that.
Oh, of course. I was just pointing out that we were not standing in a line, but yes, I can certainly introduce myself. Then Misha's gonna grab the hand of the mayor with both hands, because it's going to find, like, awkward. They didn't do that before. And they're going to be like, yes, well, as I introduced myself previously to other people in this bar, my identifier name is Machine in Suit of Human Armor, just a rather very intelligent system. But as I have had the fortune of understanding, humans do not seem to do well with long names as such. So I will respond as well to the shortened version of this nomenclature, which is Misha Jarvis. And then it's going to, like, stand quietly.
Right, maybe we should just start getting the business. Have any of you heard of the town of Obsidian Bay?
Have any of us? I don't know.
I have not.
So Obsidian Bay is a town that opened rather recently. Like us, they share the independence from the Queen. So they've had very few trading partners, and we've been one of them. They're a small mining facility right on the corner of the Black Riage. And what they do is they essentially forge for artifacts. And they trade that with us for food and water, using this. And with that, she, rather dramatically, I must add, grabs the kind of blanket carpet thing over the footstool and pulls it back. And you see this, not really ornate, this kind of crude bronze box, which some of you might recognize, and for those of you who don't, she'll explain it, as a way rail chest. What a way rail chest basically is, it's kind of like a drop box, but it's a physical drop box. So there are essentially two of the same make of any kind, and you can put them in two different locations. And essentially, if someone puts something inside of the box and closes it, it's kind of in this weird Schrodinger's cat case where it's in both boxes and neither box at the same time. And then if the other person opens it up, they can pull out the object. So it's very good for instantaneous trade. She looks at all of you and says, so a couple of the boys, when they first moved into Obsidian Bay, just found a fuck ton of these. And this is what we've been using for trade with the town. It's a bit weird because at first it didn't work, We thought there were a couple of other ones. They got sent to random other chests. Sometimes food would come back rotten, or we'd send them, we'd send them a blood barm, and they'd end up with a broken hound. And well, that just doesn't work out for anyone. We had a lot of our best scientists work on it, but somehow it didn't work until, I don't know, one day it just did. So we've been communicating a lot with Obsidian Bay for the past couple of years, but in the past 3 months, their shipments have just stopped. They don't get food and we don't get items from them. So, pretty soon after that, I sent one of my men, William Bill Turing. Not the smartest guy, but he makes a good deal. I sent him over to Obsidian Bay to figure out what's going on. I haven't heard from him since, and it's been a couple of weeks, and I mean, I don't like to catastrophize, but I'm getting pretty worried. So, the task for you guys is, as I said, we exaggerated, but it's really pretty simple. We just need you to go over to Obsidian Bay. It's about a day's hike east. Figure out, what happened to Bill, and if you can figure out why they haven't been trading with us lately, she leans over. You can actually get his share of the cut.
A cut of what?
A cut of his money, his pay, because
yeah,
he didn't
So
do his job.
No, but you could cut money.
So does this mean the money is going to be cut in half?
It's a
That's
metaphor.
what I was thinking.
Hopper just looks at both of them. He said, no, it means we'd get a portion of it.
So the money is going to be cut into little portions, and we're getting a portion of the money.
Well,
This is a really interesting form of currency.
Oh, it's
that
a
I have not been aware of.
metaphor.
well, no, the money isn't going to be physically cut. We're not going to cut a coin in half, because then it would cease to be a coin, and it wouldn't
It's a metaphor.
do anything.
It's a metaphor.
But, ma'am, I'm an accountant. I can explain this real quick. See, when you have money...
That's what I said.
Wait,
Oh.
excuse me 1 second, sir. You see, this rage spark in her eyes for a
no.
moment before she takes some deep breaths and calms herself down. That is correct. A metaphor. You will get the money he would have gotten if you can do his job for him. She looks at Ellie. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
Was I talking to...
I'll fix this. I'll fix this.
I believe so.
We will give you money.
Okay. What I need you to do is go to Obsidian Bay, to the east, find a man named Bill, and figure out why they aren't trading with us. Does that make sense?
Shock
It
is
makes
going to
sense.
nod and
Like,
start
duh.
slowly
Yes.
backing up towards the door.
Misha is going to reply with exactly as a slow tone. Yes, it definitely makes sense.
Alright, one thing before you go, is she pulls out a picture, like a little diagram of something, and it kind of looks like a stopwatch. And she says, this is some of Bill's. He calls it his pocket compressor. He uses it to store things, I think. He never really explained it that well, but he keeps it on him with all time. This pocket compressor, this PC, he calls it. So, I mean, if you can find this, you'll probably have a good shot of finding Bill. Otherwise, I don't know, the man's a drunkard, so you can probably... If there's alcohol, you'll probably find him.
Can do.
Great.
Hopper tips his hat and says, well, we'll be on our way then, Madam Mayor. We'll expect to get back to you soon.
Alright, you leave the room and you see the mayor just put her heads into her hands and you kind of see her back heaving a little bit. She may or may not be crying with exasperation. We're not quite sure. It's been a rough 5 minutes for her. So, yeah, do you want anything? Do you have anything you want to do, or do you want to get right to the quest?
Hopper's ready to go.
Before
Shock?
we leave,
No, you go ahead first.
Before we leave, Ellie just turns back to the mayor. You know, you could have just sent me. It probably would have been a better idea.
Rude.
Right. She pulls out a couple more eulogy forms in preparation. All right, Shock, what do you want to do?
Once we get outside of the room, Shaka's just going to turn to Misha and telepathically say, "Are you a machine?"
And so Misha's gonna look at Sog. So how does your telepathic thing work? Can I speak telepathically back to you?
I think so. Let me look at the wording, but I was at least interpreting it as we could communicate wirelessly.
Fun.
Yeah, he talks.
Without worrying about
so-
things.
Shock is Donatello. He talks to machine. He does the machines.
Okay, fun.
Yes.
So Misha's just going to look at Sog a little surprised and nod, and then it's going to answer. And are you not?
I mean, well, I like to think that I'm as much machine as I am human. I was raised by machines, actually. I grew up a machine. I guess I am technically a human, but I've got machine parts. So I'm like a machine, kind of.
That is quite intriguing.
It's strange. A lot of things are strange.
So are you guys just staring off into space this whole time?
At each other, but
Yeah,
yes.
none of you can hear a single word they're saying.
No.
You're just like staring there as they like do
Magic!
it. It looks like they're having a staring contest, and you two are just like there.
At least just watching in confusion and judgment.
Hopper went to the bar to get some water because he drank a little bit too much when he took a nap.
Okay, safe kid.
Well, of course, there, dear. Is this for here or is this for the road?
Yeah, for the road.
All right, then. She pulls out what looks like a little plastic cup and just puts all the water in it, and says, "All right, now, are you going to be okay with this, or do you want me to put a lid on it?"
I'll be okay.
All right. Good luck, dear. You'll do great.
Thank you. And then he's gonna turn around and walk and be like, God, this town is confusing. To himself.
Perfect. Shock is also going to do the hand touch back, and then say out loud, "We're going to be such great friends. I haven't met anyone like you since I've been traveling."
For anyone listening, Misha in our voice chat did the Tarzan Jane heart thing on
Like
Shock.
the hand thing. Yeah, so Misha's gonna be like, yes, what parts of you makes you human and what parts of you makes you machine? This is quite intriguing. I've never met anyone quite like you before.
Oh, well, I'm glad you asked. And so Shock takes off his hood, and he lifts up a tuft of hair, and you see like a disk drive in the side of his head. The left side of his head, to be specific. And he lifts open a flap of that looks like skin, but it's just a little flap on the side of it, and pulls out a couple of chips from the inside and says, "My spell book," and slots them back in. And who knows what else is a machine?
Huh.
All right, now,
That
dear, I don't mean to be much of a hassle, but we are a fighting town, but we don't want to go into these gross extremities. If you could just take that outside, I would really appreciate it.
All right, fine, I guess. And Shock just sort of huffs and flips up his hood again. Says, "A wizard leaves only when he chooses to." Mm-hmm. And then just walks out trying to swish his robe about him a little bit.
All right, so You all very dramatically leave the bar. And are we gonna head straight for Obsidian Bay?
Yes. Well, Hopper is.
I don't have any money.
Yeah. Was there
So I don't really-
was there anything anyone wanted to do before then?
So Shock looks at everyone and says, do they give us the food before we do the job or after we do the job?
What food?
You're like, oh, so you do
I was under the impression that you did work to get food, and that's important because I haven't had food for about a day or so.
Well, I mean, sometimes, but this is a paying job. The ad said money, right?
Oh, so the food is the thing that gets split in half, not the
No,
money.
no.
I guess that would
No.
make more sense.
No.
All right. Okay. But in that case, how can I exchange this money for food? I know it's valuable, but I've been. It's a long story. I haven't really had a chance to use shins before.
Almost by fate, you hear a voice ringing down the corner. Hot hounds for sale. Come and get your nice, tasty midnight hot hounds.
Hopper points at him and says, "There's a guy.
But it's not midnight.
He'll tell you how much his food costs, and then you give him that many shins."
You know you don't have to pay for food. I have food.
No, you have to pay for food. Oh, you're offering.
No,
well,
I
have
have
food?
I'm giving him food.
If-
Wait, one sec. Ellie reaches into her hat and by the tail pulls out a large rat.
Gross.
It's dead. It's dead.
It's been dead for a very long time.
Hopper
Too long.
looks back from the rat to Shock and then says, "So there's a hot hound guy right over there, and he'll just tell you how many shins his actual food costs."
This is food.
Now that's simple enough. But I can eat this rat now and save the shins to buy other things later. It's a
Exactly.
smart choice.
I mean, yeah.
She's going to be like, oh, I do believe those animals have tendencies to cause disease to a certain race of humans. Or a certain,
you just gotta cook them properly. That's actually the easy part.
I'm not dead yet.
I've had to eat rats many times.
All right.
Oh, I see. Interesting that you eat food.
So Tom, are you gonna eat the rat?
Well, I mean, not right here and now. We've got to cook it and clean it.
What?
But
Um,
Shock's not a barbarian.
well, look, if you're gonna cook the rat, that's fine, but maybe you should do that later so that we can get like, what time is it? Is it noon? Like,
It's evening. It was an evening bar brawl.
okay. But I think
So like if you leave now, you could get to Obsidian Bay by maybe mid-late afternoon tomorrow.
Okay.
By walking through the night.
Yeah. Well, you could sleep for like 30 minutes.
Well, if it's the evening, sorry, I thought it was like midday. I forgot it was evening. If it's evening, in that case, Hopper said, well, if you want to just leave tomorrow morning and get there like late tomorrow, that would be fine, and then you could cook your rat, I guess. But, the
Makes
tavern,
sense.
has really good calzoons.
What's a calzoon?
I'm glad you asked. A calzoon is like dough, and then there's tomatoes and cheese, and they put a lot of meat in this one. And normally I don't eat that much meat, but like it's really good meat in here, and they're really filling and delicious. Not enough people appreciate them. Like I had to ask them here to make it special because it wasn't a normal menu item. Who wouldn't have a calzoon as a normal menu item?
Welcome everyone to Chef Friends, everyone's favorite role-playing cooking podcast, where we talk about all sorts of food.
Shock looks down at the rat, hands it back to Ellie, and says, "Thank you very much, but I came here to learn, and that means I'm going to eat a calzoon today."
Hopper is really surprised that someone actually took his recommendation for a calzoon. So he's gonna be
Lead the way, Hopperscotch. And he punctuates this with a dramatic point.
Okay. Hopper's like kind of jumping up and down a little bit. He's that excited. Then he runs back in to the tavern, screaming,
All right.
"One of your finest calzoons, ma'am."
All right. Well, we'll get to the plot next episode, I guess. everyone, it's me, Kyle, the GM, the guy you've been listening to for the past hour. Thank you so much for listening to the first episode of Quest Friends, a podcast that's going to come out every other Monday because I don't got the time to make more of these. The intro song for this podcast is Friends by Miracle of Sound, and the outro song is Hitoshio, also by Miracle of Sound. I'm really thankful of the fact that such a big content creator is so generous in the stuff he shares, so please, reward that by watching his stuff. Also reward yourself by listening to some dang good tunes. Speaking of rewarding dang good stuff, if you like this podcast, leave a comment, leave a like, post it on your blog, post it on your vlog, post it on your frog. We're really small. Currently, we don't have the money to do any sort of, advertising, so, a single person is going to make a big deal to us just from, an emotional, feeling good standpoint. But if you like what you listened to today, the really big thing is to just find a way to keep up with us, follow us on Podbean, follow us on iTunes, and we will see you again for our next episode on Monday, October 9th.